Okay, good evening, everybody in India, and good morning to folks in the US and Canada.
Morning.
Um, yeah, we're starting with a live webinar session with our two experts in the US and Canada. My name is Simrandeep, and I'm going to host the session today. Our topic for today is common mistakes made by students while applying for undergraduate courses in US and Canada. We'll firstly begin by introducing our participants today. So we have three people on the call. We have Milap, who's a fourth year undergraduate student at Thompson River University. We have Webber, who studies at the University of Kentucky. And we have Ikra, who's a study abroad Shiksha counselor with Shiksha. So let me quickly tell you what's going to be the agenda for today. We're going to start with an introduction, very brief introduction about what Shiksha Study Abroad does. Then we'll move over to the introduction of our participants, all three participants. We've got a lot of questions submitted by the students. And we pre-screen some of those questions, and we're going to ask those questions to our panelists. And then in the end, if we have time, we'll open something for live Q&A. So yeah, very briefly about Shiksha Study Abroad. There are three main things that I would like to point about Shiksha Study Abroad away from this session. One is we're the largest study abroad website for students in India. More than 3 million students actually visit us every year. That's one. Second, we are the largest comparison site in India. You can compare over 14,000 courses across 200 plus universities in 51 different countries. And third, which is most people don't know about us, is we also offer end-to-end application assistance for all the study abroad aspirants who are looking to go abroad. We have an in-house team of counselors who will work with students end-to-end from the time of they've given an exam till the time they get a visa and enrollment in the university. So yes, three very simple things. We're the largest site. We are the most comprehensive in comparison, and we also offer end-to-end counseling services. Okay, so we'll move over to our introduction session. Our first panelist today is Milap. Milap, I'll just hand it over to you. Can you just briefly introduce us to yourselves?
Yes, for sure, I can do that. So, hi everyone, my name is Milap Dadlani. As Simrandeep mentioned, I'm a fourth year student at TRU, Thompson River University. It's located in BC, interior of British Columbia in Kamloops. A little bit background about myself would be I did my bachelor's in India. My bachelor's is in computer science. That's the degree that I went for. And I was really always passionate about marketing. So I actually chose a career in digital marketing. I worked in the industry for 2 years. And then I realized that I obviously need a formal education or formal degree in marketing. And I also wanted to study abroad. So then I just started looking for the ideal destination for study, and I evaluated all the options. Canada turned out being the best option for me. Hence, I'm doing a formal degree in marketing right now. To answer the question, why did I choose Canada to study, would be because of amazing culture that they have over here. Canada is an extremely multicultural country. There is like nothing to worry about. It's like people are amazing. Second point being the tuition fees. As compared to other countries, Canada is still more affordable. Third point being immigration system that Canada has is pretty and like really comprehensive. Want to immigrate to Canada, getting educated in Canada is one of the ways to go. So that's kind of what I was looking at. And why did I choose Thompson Rivers University would be because it's a university that offers diploma. I wasn't going for a bachelor's degree because I already had a bachelor's degree. So that was kind of neat, going to a university to kind of get a diploma, because most of the colleges in Canada, they offer diploma programs. So TRU is like, it's a unique offering by TRU. And other thing being, it's located in Kamloops, so weather-wise, it's one of the best places to be in Canada. It's one of the most warmest places that gets maximum number of sunlight hours. So that is nice. It's a nice small community with amazing places around. So there's so many places you can explore. There's nature all around you. Overall, this whole place makes me feel happy. So that's kind of why I chose TRU.
Okay, great, Milab. I think that's a great way to start the session. Let us now move on to Vaibhav. Vaibhav, over to you. If you can briefly introduce us to yourselves.
Sure. My name is Vaibhav Chitkara, as Simandeep mentioned. I am an undergraduate student who's in my junior year, which is the third year here, and I'm studying computer and electrical engineering. I'm doing 2 different degrees and hoping to finish off in the next year and a half. Apart from my academics, I am a diversity scholar intern, and I'm also part of the International Student Ambassador program at the university itself. People have different ideas when they're thinking about UK. There's some people that want to come here for undergraduate degrees, and there's quite a few well-renowned programs, nationally known programs at the University of Kentucky. But the big thing about UK is that it's very open to doing research with professors who are very
Vaibhav, I think your internet is cutting off in between. We're not able to see your video. Vaibhav, we are not able to hear you. Can you check your internet connection, please?
You'll see that when
Okay, I think what we'll do is we'll move on to our next participant, and we'll hope that Vaibhav's internet comes back to normal. So our next participant is Ikra. Ikra, over to you if you can briefly introduce us to yourselves.
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Ikra Khan, and I'm part of the study abroad team at shiksha.com. And I have been working on the study abroad domain for more than 8 years now. And I counsel and guide students over the entire admission process. I expertise sending students to various kind of programs like undergraduate, postgraduate, and doctorates as well. And I've sent and worked on sending students to almost all top study destinations, be it US, UK, Canada, Australia, Singapore, and Europe.
Okay, great. I think we have Vaibhav back with us. Vaibhav, can you hear us? No, I think you came in between, but I guess you dropped off again. Okay, so never mind, we'll move forward. What we're going to do is we're going to start with a set of questions that the students have submitted. And I see Vaibhav, you're back. Can you hear me, Vaibhav? Vaibhav?
yes, I can.
Vaibhav, can you hear me? Okay, never mind. Let's move on. So yeah, we'll move on to the set of student questions that students have submitted. We're going to follow an order here. What we're going to do is we've divided the questions into various topics that the students have submitted. And so there are 6 different topics, primarily costs and scholarships, eligibility and exam scores, something about gap year, questions about college fitment, and student life. So the different kind of questions that have come to us, the questions around costs. A lot of people want to know what are the minimum funds required for pursuing different types of courses in the US, in the Canada. People want to know about living expenses. Is there a way for them to save the cost? Are there any scholarship opportunities? So what we'll do is we'll go over them one by one. And the first set of questions that I would like to start with is Ikra. So Ikra, my first question for you is, on an average, how much funds do you think students from India typically require for tuition and living expenses, both for US and in Canada?
Okay. So usually to do an undergraduate degree from USA, a student should keep a minimum budget of rupees 20 to 25 lakh rupees per year. However, there are some universities wherein a student can complete it in less, like 15 to 20 lakh rupees per year as well. But then those universities or colleges are from tier 4 or 5, levels, and they're not listed in the top 100 universities, to be specific. For Canada, it will be around rupees 15 to 20 lakh per year. So if I have to give you living expense separately, of course, living expense depends on your lifestyle as well, the kind of accommodation you choose. But it is typically around 7 to 10 lakh rupees per year for both the countries.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Great. Just follow-up question related to cost, which is about scholarships. A lot of students want to apply for scholarships. In your experience, Ikra, what have you seen? What percentage of students do end up getting a scholarship?
Okay. So see, most of the students intend and apply for scholarships, but very few actually receive it. So it totally depends on students' overall profile. It is important to understand that most of the universities offer financial assistance to international students based on their merit and not on their need. So the amount and the type of financial assistance will depend on, and it varies university to university and department, level of study student is going for. University usually looks at the overall academic background, test scores, extracurriculars, recommendations, etc. Scholarships are also dependent on what time of the year or the admission cycle you are applying at. Usually early deadlines, which are in October and November of the previous year, are more favorable for getting scholarships, and that is why students are encouraged to apply in early deadlines, because they have more probability of getting scholarship under that early admission cycle.
Okay, great, thanks. Let's now move forward. Our next set of questions is for Milap. Milap, you've been staying in Canada for some time now. Basis your experience, what are the typical costs for tuition and living expenses in Canada? And also, please touch upon the fact that different students typically from India want to minimize the costs. And are there any ways that you can recommend or people use that you know of to kind of reduce their living expenses?
Yeah, so just to touch upon that, typical cost, as Ikra also mentioned, it keeps varying around. So, like my expenses every month vary, but usually it averages around $800 a month. So I would say $10,000 per year, which most of the students pay for GIC in Canada. It sounds about right. That's one thing that they keep getting every month. It's it's like almost getting a pocket money every month. But a lot of students do work part time as well, so that kind of does help them cover the costs. For me, that's what it did, because I was getting GIC money, but I was also working on the side, so I had enough money to survive. But just to kind of get an average cost, I would say per month it does end up costing me about $800, and that just it's based off everyone's lifestyle. A lot of students end up spending a lot less. So it depends on how often you go out, how often do you cook meals at home. Mostly that's what you're going to end up spending on, and the other thing would be on the rent. So like you can especially look out for the areas where the pricing is right, so students should do that. What I do is, like, I live a little far away from the university, but not a whole lot. But then I get good rents over here in that area. So if students who are looking to minimize their living expenses, maybe can move a little far away from the university or the main city area and see if it's still easy to travel. And in that sense, they can save a lot of money on expenses. That's what I would say. The other ways would be definitely cooking your own meals. A lot of students go outside. Like eating out obviously ends up being expensive in the long run. So cook your own meals, learn how to cook. And another thing I would say is maybe do prep meals. So what a lot of students here do is they just cook meals in bulk and then just pack it in different boxes. So when you do that, like, you obviously are using things in bulk, so overall it doesn't cost as much.
Okay, great. I think a lot of people actually learn cooking meals when they go abroad to study.
Yes.
Yeah. So let me move further now. Let me go over to Webber, and I hope that he'll be able to now join in the conversation. Webber, a question for you. For students who are, academically very bright, and they're looking to get good grades, there are also a lot of scholarship opportunities that we keep hearing about. In your experience, how likely are these people to get scholarships, and typically these scholarships save them how much money? Vaibhav? I think there might be some problem with the internet. We're not able to hear you, Vaibhav. Yeah, I think he's dropped off. Maybe he'll try and join back in, and then maybe we'll circle back to this question later on. Let me move forward now and uh, get to the next set of questions that we have. Most of the next set of questions are, we've received a lot of questions on eligibility, exam score. People want to know what kind of exams they need to give for going to different countries, for US, for Canada. What is a good exam score? What is a good timing to give the SAT or the IELTS exam? So let's start with Ikra actually on this point. Ikra, first question to you is, what exams does a student need to give if he or she wants to apply to UG courses? And please talk specifically about US and Canada separately.
Okay. So if I have to talk about US, typically a student needs an SAT and IELTS or TOEFL for English language proficiency. Some top-notch universities may ask for SAT subject tests as well. For Canada, student need IELTS or TOEFL for English language proficiency. SAT is recommended but not mandatory. So some universities, for example, University of Toronto, ask for SAT score for selective courses. So it is not mandatory, but it is recommended to have SAT if you're applying to the top universities in Canada, just to add more weightage to your application.
Okay, okay. And is there any good time to give the SAT? I know the SATs actually happen only a fixed time in the year, but IELTS and TOEFL are more liberal with the dates. So
Right.
students are asking, is there a good time, and what scores are usually considered good scores for these exams?
Okay. So SAT is conducted 6 times a year in India. Ideally, students should take first attempt of the SAT in their class 11th, which is they have October, November, December. So they should ideally attempt it in October, November, or December, so that if there is a need to re-attempt the exam, they have enough time to brush up their knowledge and prepare well in the second attempt and reappear for the exam in class 12th. Ideally, it's May, June, wherein maximum students go for it because that's a relatively free time for them. However, IELTS or TOEFL can be taken in class 12th anytime depending on their schedule. And if I have to tell you about the good scores, so new SAT, which is out of 1600, a score of 1000 is considered an average score, whereas earlier it was 1500 out of 2400. So
Okay.
if your new SAT score, a student is scoring 1200 out of 1600, then it's a really very good score.
Okay. And what about IELTS and TOEFL?
IELTS, it's 6.5. Some universities are a little liberal for undergraduate courses. They may take 6 bands on the scale of 9 as well. None of the bands should be less than 6. TOEFL, anything above 90 on scale of 120 in internet-based test is good. It's considered good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Milab, let me come over to you. You must have actually prepared for the IELTS exam, and
Yeah.
different people actually have different philosophies of going for a preparation. Some people go for a test preparation, some do it themselves. Can you talk a little bit about your journey of preparation and what would be your recommendation to the aspiring students?
I would say, like, for me especially, IELTS, like, I didn't really prepare a lot for it, because of the fact that I was already working in the industry, so I was dealing with people from different countries, so I already had to be proficient with English. So I always had that, and like ever since in school, I used to read a lot of books and articles and newspaper. So for me, I would say it was a long-term prep, but in short term, if you want to prepare for IELTS, I would say giving a lot of tests like trial tests before you give the actual test, especially the reading section. That's where most of the students get stuck up. So I'd suggest trying out the trial tests that are available. So go through the academic reading section and try to identify what different passages, like whatever answers, whatever the questions are, try to identify those. So you have to really read everything in detail. That's one thing. I would say for listening, you just have to pay attention to what they're saying. Usually listening is pretty easy. Most people find it think like they have the preconceived notions that it might be tricky, but overall it's pretty easy. Speaking, I would say like try practicing. Like speaking, it normally like comes naturally if you've been speaking English since a long time. So that's what happened with me. But otherwise, if that's not the case, I would suggest checking out what I did, like just to get some idea. Check out some videos on YouTube if there's any help available. Yeah, so reading, writing, listening. What did I miss?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's pretty much all covered. Like I would say, like give yourself enough time before you
How
start.
much time would
Before
you
you
recommend?
actually. Uh, on an average, like at least a month, if you have enough free time, might as well practice for it, because there's advantages of getting a good IELTS score too. I don't know about other universities, but at TRU you kind of get exempted for like an English course as well. Like bachelor's degree students are expected to take 2 English courses minimum. But if you get a good band, like I got 8 overall, so I got exempted from one of the English courses, which is kind of nice. So prepare well in advance so you at least save money on, like, you don't have to spend on one of the extra courses.
Okay, makes sense. I think Weber is back. Weber, fingers crossed. Hopefully this time you will be able to. We will be able to hear you. So the question to you is: let me first check. Weber, can you hear us? Can you say
I
something?
can hear you
Okay,
guys.
awesome. So yeah, so the question to you is, Weber, about the SAT exams. You must have given the SAT, I'm assuming, when you cracked
Yeah.
the University of Kentucky. What would
Yes.
you recommend on the SAT or the SAT subject tests, and any tips you want to share with the others?
Sure. I would have to say that SAT exams are important for all universities, the normal SAT. And then depending on what field you're going into, a lot of different universities tend to focus on specific SAT subject tests. So you have to be very careful about what you're looking to study at what university, and you do your research and see what they're expecting from those subject tests. Also, a lot of these SAT exams help out in getting scholarships. The better the score, the more scholarship you might be able to avail from different universities, especially mine over here. They have scholarships that are dependent on um, your SAT scores and your GPA and things like that when you're coming in as a student. And I would have to say some tips in order to start studying for them. There's a lot of books that you can find that help in preparation for the SATs. There's like Barron's. They have a few different SAT subject testing books. The company itself, College Board, has a few books in order to help out with the normal SAT exams as well. Just uh, take all the resources that you can find and actually use them and go through them, because a lot of times, like, you start understanding the structure, the questions they're going to ask you, the depth of mathematics they require in, like, the mathematics section, and the type of essays you're going to have to be reading in the reading section and then analyzing afterwards. So just, have a general sort of idea of what to expect on the exam, because a lot of students get surprised when they go to the first SAT exam because they're not quite sure what sort of um, um, question structure they're going to be getting on the exam. Also, don't be scared to take it more than one time. A lot of students tend not to do well on it the first time around. The second or the third time around is definitely a much better score.
Okay, makes sense. Um, we had skipped over a question while you were offline, and I'm going to come back to that question. And since you mentioned scholarships and SAT have a link, for students who are academically very good,
Mm-hmm.
and are very comfortable or very confident of securing a good grade and an SAT score, what kind of scholarships do they typically end up getting? How much money would they end up saving?
It depends from university to university, I would say. Also, whether it's a public university or if it's a private university, because you can find scholarships for a few $1,000s based on your SAT scores and your GPA and your TOEFL score and everything, or you can find for like 50% of the tuition fees, or even more than that for some of the universities. It just depends on what each university is able to offer to the international students. And you have to be very careful in only looking at scholarships that are available for international students, because in the US that's a very distinct feature, where the international students cannot avail for the scholarships that you might be able to get if you were an American citizen, things like that.
Yeah, we've noticed that a lot. A lot of the scholarships are not open to the international students, and
Yeah.
it's difficult to make
And
out.
depending on how much diversity a campus is looking to integrate into their campus, then there's more scholarships or less scholarships based on that idea as well.
Okay. We're seeing a lot of questions coming up on the live channel. I'm just going to request all participants to hold on to their questions for now. You can keep writing them. Towards the end of the call, we'll come to the live question and answers. We thank you for your patience in the meantime. So moving on to the next set of questions, a lot of students have asked about subject SATs. We've spoken about SATs a little bit, but subject SATs are a slightly different kind of exam. So let me come to Ikra and ask more about subject SATs. Ikra, can you briefly tell what are subject SATs? Are they required? And if yes, how important are these exams? If they're not required, why do people give them?
Okay, so limited universities have requirement for SAT subject test for selective courses. So a university may not have SAT subject test for maths required for, let's say, bachelor's in computer science, but they may require it for bachelor's in mathematics. So usually SAT subject test measures students' college readiness and subject area knowledge. Student can show their thorough knowledge of that particular subject as well as their academic interest through SAT subject test scores. So it is to judge, and a university can actually look at your skills and your knowledge in that particular subject, which is relevant in terms of your undergraduate course you are intending to go for.
Okay. Right. A lot of questions have also come on the schooling system. People are asking about ninth scores and about 11th class scores. So let me come to Vaibhav. Vaibhav, in your experience, do good universities in the US give consideration to the scoring that a student gets in the class 9 and 11th? And if they do give some consideration, how important are these marks? Because typically many students do not score as well in class 11 as they score in class 10 and 12th. So their grades see a dip in the class 11. So that's why I think this concern is a very common one amongst the students.
From my experience, I would say universities tend to look at the 4 years of high school as a whole. So they'll take your GPA and from your 9th to your 12th grade and see how you've done over the years, and they'll compare all the years that you've done to see if you've been consistent or if you've had some dips here and there. They do pay attention to that to see what type of student you will be after you come to the university, so that they can you know, properly advise you on what classes to take as soon as you come in, and where you would stand as a student, incoming international student at the university academically. But I feel they don't. You'll still get accepted even if you had one bad year, but you have to make sure that you keep up with extracurricular activities and things like that, because that is a big thing that universities tend to look at. They want to see students be able to do more things than just the academics that everyone does on a daily basis. So maybe like join clubs, join after-school activities or extracurricular activities apart from school, volunteer, things like that are definitely a very good resume booster for universities.
Okay. Ikra, would you want to say anything on the importance of class 9 and class 11 marks in the overall scheme of things?
Yeah, I totally agree with what Vaibhav said. However, class 10th marks are important, and we have seen that universities are very well versed with the class 9th and 11th standards. That in India, most of the schools very strictly administered the class 9th and 11th, and but yes, it is important. Somehow some universities may not pay much attention to class 9th and 11th, but it is very important to have these 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th scores on your school transcript. So universities do look at the holistic performance of the student in last 4 years.
Okay. Right. So moving on to the next set of questions, we have questions on gap year. and students are asking their doubts related to if they've skipped a year after 12th, what do they do? Can they still apply? So, Ikra, another question to you. Can students apply with a gap year? Is it normally considered a negative while evaluating a profile by the university?
No, not really. As long as you're meeting the admission criteria given by the university, and of course you are able to justify that 1 year gap, it should not be a concern. Justification can be in terms of you were preparing for any exam, you were involved in any extracurricular activity, you were doing some social work, or were associated with any social organization. If you are able to justify that 1 year gap well, then it should not be a problem or hindrance in your admission.
Simrandeep, I don't think I can hear you currently.
Yeah. Simran, you there?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think I was on the mute.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, so what I'm saying is I want to spend some time on the college fitment kind of questions. A lot of students have written about their profile and they wanted to ask about what colleges they should target. So we're not going to discuss specific profiles for now, but this is an important issue because sitting here in India, a lot of people don't know about what are the factors they should consider while evaluating a school. So that's where my first question is to Vaibhav. Typically, students end up focusing on ranking or one or two other criteria. And fitment, if you end up choosing a wrong school, typically your college experience is not going to be good. So from that angle, Vaibhav, what advice would you give to students? I'm sure when you were in India, you didn't know schools that well. And now that you know them well, what difference in perspective has it brought to you?
I would say that it's it's important to look at the rankings and see where each of the programs line up with the rest of the country, just so you know how academically adverse your program is going to be at the university. But at the same time, it's also important to do a little bit more research, look on the Facebook pages that you might be able to find, see what type of international community that each university has, because when you're coming in as a student, that community is going to be the one that is going to aid you and help you out and get you adjusted to the culture and the life in the US. So make sure that you feel like you're going to be able to integrate with the people here, that you're going to find the necessary support from counselors, international center, things like that, with friends from other countries, so that you'll have a good experience at the US. And I feel personally, for me at least, I got that sort of like idea after I looked up on some of the Facebook pages, a lot of the videos that they upload, to see what type of campus they have, reading reviews about universities online on Google, see what people are feeling about it. It's the small things like that really play into if the university is going to be a good fit for you or not. You can't only base it off of the ranking on a list, because that's only the academic side. When you're coming to the US, you have a whole social and financial side to look after as well. So you have to see where you're getting scholarships, where you feel that you're going to be able to integrate, and also where they have a good academic program for you. So all in all, those are some of the most important things when you're deciding different schools.
Okay. So yeah, so Webber is recommending looking at the Facebook pages, looking at YouTube, looking at videos, trying to get more information than just pure ranking, as take ranking into consideration, but as one of the parameters, but also focus on other things. Um, so moving on to the next question from Milab. So Milab, I would want to ask you the similar question, but since that was a US perspective. You probably will give us a different kind of a perspective. Um, can you just talk a little bit upon what factors should a student choose?
I would say there's multiple factors when it comes to selecting the right college. There is no right college as such. It all depends on what do you want to do, or what are your personal preferences. One of the key factors I actually looked at was the location. Location is very important because you'll be at that place for at least minimum 2 years, maximum for an undergrad course for 4 years. So if you're going to be there in that city or town for that period of time, you would also want to network with people around there. As a business student, I have to network with a lot of people. Just because Kamloops is a smaller community, it's easier to do all of that. But location definitely one of the important parts. Because Canada is also a northern country, so it gets really cold. So I would say if you can't really deal with cold, like really cold areas, so then choose for the warmer regions that are there in Canada. Besides that, when it comes to education, I wouldn't really say just depend on the rankings, because more or less it pretty much ends up being the same. However, like more recognizable names are obviously better options to go with. And other than that, for me, diversity was a big thing. Like if I'm coming out of India, I also wanted to go to a university or an institution which has a diverse campus. So at least I get to experience that firsthand. Like Thompson's University has like over 85 different nationalities on campus. So I have friends from around the world, and just like from 2 to 3 months, like I had pretty much friends from different parts of the world. To know that, because when you deal with people from different cultures, you have that multicultural experience. So even if, say, you're working in international business, that comes in handy because you know about those cultures already. So I would say rankings, yes, important. Location, very important. Other thing could be the USP or the course that the college or the institute is offering. Does it align with your goals, your long-term career goals? So if it does align, great. So these are some of the key factors, like the top 3 factors I would consider when I look for any colleges. I think it would work for most of the students as well.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. Okay, so moving on to the next set of topic, we have questions related to the application process. Writing the SOP, the statement of purpose, getting the letter of recommendations is an important part of the entire process. And students have doubts on those things. Let me start with Ikra on these set of questions. Ikra, first question to you. Students are confused about whom should they approach to get a letter of recommendation. What would you advise them?
Okay, so a recommendation letter is a document that provides the admission committee a comprehensive insight to your candidature, relevant in terms of the course you are applying for. So this letter aims at enabling the admission decision makers gain a clearer and favorable picture of your experience, your skills, as in your knowledge, your achievements. So a student usually think that the value added to your candidature by the recommendation letter is directly linked to the designation of the recommender who is giving you the letter of recommendation. But it is not true at all. The significance of recommendation knows I mean it's I mean the significance is if someone who knows you, under whom you have worked on certain project, who knows your academic interest, can write for you or can recommend you. So you should a student should ideally pick someone as their recommender, under whom they have worked on an assignment or a project, who knows them closely academically in terms of academic work they have done, because only that person can favorably highlight your knowledge and skills in the relevant subject areas. So you should choose someone as your recommender who can actually tell the university your skills, your knowledge, and your expertise in that subject area which you are planning to study.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that should clarify for a lot of people. What about a statement of purpose, Ikra? A lot of students want to know what kind of things they should bring out, trying to highlight their profile.
See, in SOP, a student should highlight their motivation to study their desired course in terms of their academic, professional experience, and other life instances. So, first is this. Then they must talk about their academic journey by mentioning their projects, their internships, their assignments, or any research or anything extraordinary what they have done. uh, they should then clearly highlight their career goals. Why they're wanting to do this particular course, how their desired course will help them achieve their career goals. They should be connected. Students also should talk about the country and university, why the student is attracted towards pursuing their higher education from this particular university, why they want to go to that particular country, what actually they want to achieve out of that course. So these 4 or 5 points are very important to be covered and highlighted in your personal statement.
Okay. And in addition to the SOP and the LOR, are there any other documents that are required for applying to the university that are important?
See, ideally, the university application should include your, of course, the application form, filled in application form, your school transcript, your test scores, academic CV, your personal statements, recommendation letters. If university is asking for two recommendation, then ideally it should be one from your subject teacher and one from the school counselor. If it's three, then two teachers and one counselors can give the recommendation. A passport as your ID proof, and a portfolio if you're applying for any art or design course. So these are the documents that your application packet should have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so Weber, when you were applying in your time, how did you approach writing these SOPs and LORs?
Well, as an undergraduate student, the statement of purpose is not as significant as it would be for graduate process. But I would say for the statement of purpose, you should talk about what you've done already with your academics and outside of your academics as well, like your extracurriculars and clubs and social work and things like that, and talk about what sort of area you focused on in your academics as well, what stream you went down and things like that. Talk about what your goals are, what you're motivated to study, and why you're motivated to study that, and discuss like the relevance of the recent activities that you've done right before you're applied, like in your senior year, things like that. And then really do elaborate on what your academic interests are, because in the end, that's what they're looking to kind of get an idea about. They're wanting to know why you want to come to the U.S., why you want to study at that university, especially why that specific program. Just because they want to know that you're comfortable in doing exactly what you want before you come here. And then I would say for the letter of recommendation, you're not going to be writing it, and for the most part, they prefer and the students don't see it either. But you should definitely, like Ikra said, get in contact with a professor or teacher that has a one-on-one connection with you, that talks to you, that knows what you've done academically and outside of the academics. They should be able to judge your individual character holistically and write that out in a letter of recommendation, and then give it in along with your application.
Okay. So coming to student life, now these are the questions that I think everybody would want to know from people who are already studying there. So questions related to jobs, questions related to safety. Let me start with Milap here. Milap, you've been studying there for 4 years. How different do you think is student life? And you've studied in India as well, as you were saying. You've
Yes.
experienced a little bit of college life both in India and in the Canada. So how different is student life in India and Canada? What are the similarities, and what are the differences, and how should students prepare for this?
I would say there's a lot of differences because like the education system is very different. Canada is known for its like world-class education system that's in place. So I would speak about the differences first. Like to start off with the differences, I would say you get to learn the way you want, like and where you want. Like especially at TRU, from my experience, like I can choose any courses at any point of time. It's not like you are given a timetable, you make your own timetable, choose the courses that you want to do in this semester, choose the courses you want to do in next semester, and choose your timings because there's multiple sessions of the same class. So you can choose whatever time works the best for you. So it's flexible in that sense. There's also open learning and online courses. Like how, say, if I'm doing 4 courses on campus, but I also want to finish up my course early, I can take 1 course or 2 courses online as well. That's one of the things. Like, so flexibility is obviously a big thing. Otherwise, in terms of student life, like the campuses are obviously more diverse. When you're in India, you pretty much just see Indian students. In some Indian universities, you'll still find people coming in from abroad. So that's the difference here. I can see like the whole world is on campus because there's over 18 nationalities. Um, I would say I have a life beyond the classroom. I am a social media ambassador for the university. I have my own student club. So there's a lot of opportunities that you can make use of as a student in Canada, even beyond your classroom. You could come to Canada and go to study abroad at different places. That's one of the other things I would say. And like there's a lot of academic support from the university. It's not just academic support, actually. You also get career counseling. You also get health and wellness support. So like they're ready to support you with everything while you're studying, so just to make it right for you, and like so that you're not worried about anything. Like every Thursday, it's Thursday over here at universities, we have therapy dogs. So for people who are stressed out during exams, like they can just interact with the therapy dogs. It really helps you de-stress yourself. And yeah, these are
I
some of the key
quite intrigued
differences.
by the concept.
Sorry?
I think this is the first time I'm hearing about that concept.
No, we do it every Thursday over here, and therapy dogs are trained for that because a lot of people, like in general, are whenever you're stressed out or depressed, those dogs are actually trained for that. You can just interact with them, and it's really helpful. Like we see a lot of students doing that. But I would say, yeah, these are some of the key differences. The other thing is it's all continuous evaluation, so you have to be on top of your game. Like you have to be ready with your midterms, class exams, finals, because everything keeps coming after one and another. In India, it's usually common to prepare for like leave everything for the end for most of the students, just to leave it towards the end and do it all together. Yeah, just because you are being evaluated continuously, so you have to be regular with your studies. I mean, it's not a whole chunk that you have to study at one point, but study a little bit every day. So that kind of does help. That's one of the biggest differences, I would say. Similarities, I do not find a lot of similarities. That I find more differences.
No similarities at all?
See, like there's not no similarities that are really obvious. I don't know. Like I don't think there's a lot of similarities.
Okay.
And that's why students want to come abroad and experience those differences, I guess.
Yeah. I hope your classes have professors like they do in.
Yes. Yes. And the nice thing is, like, at least over here, the class sizes are limited. So that's one of the other things. Like, at least at TRU, we do not have any classes more than 40 students. So that's one of the other things I would like to add. Like, teachers or the professors actually know you by first name. They know you by your first name, which I would say, like in some Indian universities, that happens too if the class size is small. So that's one similarity I can find.
Okay. So fair enough. I think that was quite a elaborate answer to the question. Um, let me come to Vaibhav. Let's talk a little bit about post-completion of the university studies. How easy is it? So obviously you can talk about your part of the world, which is University of Kentucky. How easy is it to get a job? And if some students are unlucky and not able to get a job, how long can they stay? And do you know what is the typical employment rate in your university?
Well, I would have to say first off, before you consider if you can get a job or not, you really have to figure out if you want to go for your graduate degree as well or not. Because depending on if you want to focus on academia or if you want to go straight into the market, you have to decide between the graduate school or job after completing your undergraduate degree. Since I'm in engineering, it's more common in the US to go and get a job after finishing off your undergraduate degree just because it provides you with all the information that you would need in order to get a starting position in most of the companies. Um, if we talk about the actual process of getting a job and like being able to apply for it and things like that, I would say that most universities have um, campus fairs for companies to come in and present and like have little booths, and it happens twice a semester, essentially twice in one academic school year, once in the fall, so around like September or October, and then once in the spring around March, April. And you go to those campus fairs where the companies have little booths, you dress up nicely, you have your resumes printed out and everything, you go talk to each booth and the representatives that they have from each company, and they're very open to talking with you, discussing what your plans are after finishing off your undergraduate degree, what you're looking to get out of a job, if the company's goals and your goals match up. Like they want to get people that are going to actively do the jobs that they're given to them in the company, so they are going to do their best to like match you up with a company that fits your needs as well and your style of life. So you're going to feel quite comfortable in campus tours, and a lot of the advisors that you have here, the academic advisors, they also direct you to career counselors, things like that. So there's a lot of resources that you do have on campus in order to avail those opportunities after your undergraduate degree. You just have to make sure that you go out and you actively look to use these resources, because a lot of times people don't realize there's career counselors, there's a career center in most universities in the US, and you have to make sure that you can use all the opportunities that are provided to you at the university for free. And about how long they can stay as a STEM major, they have been changing the laws as of late, and I can stay for 3 months without a job after completing my undergraduate degree and without the government saying anything. But after 3 months, I need to start using my OPT essentially. So I need to be working at a job that's giving me some sort of training. And once students come to the university, and like the university in the US, they learn about the CPT and the OPT and everything. So they don't need to worry about that just yet. That's something that becomes a bigger issue after you start college and things like, and you start working. But you can use your OPT, and then for STEM majors, you can use the OPT for 12 months and then renew it 2 more times. So in total, as a STEM major, you can have 36 months of working in a company using your OPT. And after that point, the company either needs to sponsor you, or you need to be able to find some sort of company that does sponsor you in order to stay in the US.
Okay. Okay. What we're going to do now is we're going to throw open the house to some questions that students have been asking us. So I see a lot of questions that have come in, and let me pick one. So Aman Khan has asked a question. How strong is mechanical or automobile engineering in Canada? And what kind of employment rates can students expect? So if I could go to Milap on this question. Milap, would you have any thing to answer on this question?
So, since I'm a business student, my knowledge about that might be limited. However, I know Eastern Canada is like Ontario province of Canada is big on manufacturing. So, automobile wise, yes, I do know they have industries over there. So, there are jobs in the eastern part of Canada. As for the like universities, there's some of the world-class universities for engineering in Canada. So UBC, towards the East Coast, there's University of Toronto, and there's much more happening in the east side. So I would say, like, if you're really looking at mechanical engineering, look at the eastern part of Canada. Do a little bit of research on your own. Look up what the industry's growth rate is, or how is it working out. So I would say, like, automobile, yes, it's one of the key engineering departments in Canada. I would say that.
Okay. Right. We've got another question for Canada by Sridhar Reddy. Sridhar is asking some other questions as well. Let me start with this one. Sridhar is saying that he's got 54% while pursuing BCom final year. Is he eligible for applying to Canada? So is there some eligibility problem that people can see? So let me ask Ikra. Ikra, is 54% BCom final year? Can a student with that kind of academics apply to Canada?
Yeah, sure. They can apply to Canadian community colleges under Student Partners Program, popularly known as SPP program, which has been designed specially for Indian students. There are certain advantages to apply under this program. There is a streamlined visa processing. There are less visa documentation required. So it is basically a framework designed by CIC, which is Citizenship and Immigration Canada and Association of Canadian Community Colleges, wherein 40 community colleges in Canada have come forward, and they have given certain eligibility criteria, and if a student is falling under those categories, they are satisfying those criteria, they can apply to these colleges. Some of the eligibility criteria would be an overall score of 6 bands in IELTS, a minimum of 50% in bachelor's, and I think Sridhar has 54%, so he can definitely apply. The colleges will offer various diploma and graduate certificate programs. So he is eligible not for the for most of the universities, but for the community colleges under SPP program.
Okay. We have another question from, so we're just going to take one or two questions at max, and then we're going to close the session. Got another question from Mahdi Rizvi, who's saying that he's a class 11 student and wants to pursue undergraduate in software engineering in Canada. And he's asking, what entrance exam should I give?
Okay.
Yeah, so Ikra, can you take that?
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned, SAT is recommended and not mandatory. If he's looking at the top universities, so to beat the competition, he can give SAT to add more weightage to his application. Otherwise, an IELTS or TOEFL exam to prove his English language proficiency, he should be given, and that's all. So with IELTS as a mandate requirement, SAT as a recommended requirement, he can apply to Canadian universities.
Okay. We've got a question from Udit, who's asking about loan opportunities available in the university. So let me go to Weber and ask him, in situations where students are not able to afford, are certain loan opportunities available in big universities? Yours is a big publicly funded state university.
I feel that loans are not as available for international students, at least in the US, because they don't have a credit buildup or anything with banks. So the banks are going to be reluctant to give students academic loans based on that as well. And there's also going to be the issue of co-signers in the US for loans. So I think if you are looking to get loans for the academics and everything, it might be better to get in India and then transfer that money into dollars and then pay off your tuition and everything, just because it's going to be an easier process for all the students, and it's guaranteed that they're going to be able to find loans in India rather than in the US.
Okay.
The university itself does not look to give any loans out for the tuition.
Okay. And Milab, what about Canada? Loan opportunities available in big universities?
I would say it's quite similar, adding to what Webber said, because when students come over here, they have limited credit built up. So it's not that easy. I would say usually like getting loans from India would be much better if you have a recognizable university and a course on your profile. I would say like just get your loan from India because here it just gets a little bit more tricky. It's different systems and all those kind of things come into the play. So I would say stick to the Indian bank and loans for that matter.
Okay, okay. We've got maybe one of the last questions we'll take. Mohit Dogra is asking a question on robotics engineering. He's saying he has plans to give SAT subject tests, physics and maths to. His first question is, which part of US and Canada is good for robotics engineering? I know this is a new and upcoming branch. So let me go to Milab first and then to Weber. If you have any sense of, is there any part of your country which is popular for these kind of courses?
I would say yes. Some of the universities that would probably be up and coming with this. I don't really know for a fact that if these universities offer robotics, but on top of my mind, University of British Columbia comes to my mind. Like because they always keep coming out with latest technologies, they are the greatest labs. So robotics, I would believe they would have something to do with that. Other than that, University of Toronto, obviously that's one of the other big names. That's in Toronto, East Coast. Most of the universities in the East Coast, I would say, so mostly in the province of Ontario and Quebec. University of Toronto, McGill University in Quebec, and universities more so in Ontario. In the West Coast, I would say look at University of British Columbia, and somewhere in the middle in Alberta, you can look at the University of Alberta or University of Calgary.
Okay. And Weber, if I could ask the same question to you, robotics engineering in the US?
I feel that robotics engineering is quite a upcoming field, and most universities don't have a program specifically in robotics engineering. What most students tend to do is like get a mechanical engineering degree or something along those lines, and then they go into their graduate program and then they focus on something as specific as robotics engineering. Or if you are looking to do specifically robotics engineering for your undergraduate degree, there might be a few universities in California and around the Silicon Valley area which are going to be more adept to having those sort of courses and academic focuses with the university.
Okay. So with that, we're coming to the end of the session today. I would like to request all participants to please drop in your comments to tell us how we did. Did you like what all questions were covered? Do you have any suggestions for us for future sessions? Feel free to drop us notes in the comment section or in the chat session. I would also like to thank our participants. Milap, thank you very much for joining. Early morning for you. And Vibhav, thanks a lot. We had some technology issues, but you bounced back. And thanks, Ikra, for sharing your